Hello everyone. Let us come to today's question of our session of previous year question explanation. Today in our session we are explaining the question from 2024 GS1 mains question paper. This is the fifth question which belongs to geography. Geography section. Specifically, this was asked from economic geography, especially regarding migration and urbanization. The specific themes are migration and urbanization. And let us read the question once. See, here the question has the directive of why. This is also a direct directive without any complexities. There is no elaborate or critical analysis. It is a direct question where it is asking why do large cities tend to attract more migrants than smaller towns? Simply the question is asking about why large cities attract more migrants. This is one part of the question. And the second one is smaller towns why smaller towns tend to attract lower migrants. Smaller towns have low migration and why excessive migration is focused on larger cities. Now, the key aspect of this question is not about these two aspects, but the question is we need to discuss the about two components of the large cities and smaller towns in the context of developing countries. In the context of developing countries. So specifically, we need to mention about developing countries of India. You can add examples from China, Latin America like Brazil, Vietnam, and African nations. So the question is specifically targeted towards the developing countries. This is a clear question from world geography. So we should definitely mention the examples of world geography, the world cities, the world models of urbanization. Yes, we can mention Indian examples, but we definitely need to mention the world examples as it has asked about developing countries, which is not directly mentioning India. So let us see how we will be discussing this particular question. Starting with our own structure at first, introduction. Introduction. For an effective introduction, we need to provide a data, a strong data point to suggest that the migration is severe or migration is more directed towards the large cities. From this, we can have two important data. One is according to Census 2011, 43% of Mumbai's population Mumbai's population comes from comes from migrants. Or we can say in another way, out of a total 400 million migrants in an annum in India, 400 million migrants per annum in India, nearly 60% is directed towards four major metros, the Union Union Territory of New Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai. These are the major metro cities which are attracting large scale migrant population. So this can be an effective introduction supported by qualitative data point. Otherwise, you can have another introduction based on the world metrics or world statistics. You can refer or quote the data from UN Habitat. UN Habitat which states that nearly 60% of the global GDP, 60% of the global GDP is from cities, mainly the large cities. See, we can see how the impact of urbanization is affecting the economic and migratory trends. This is how we can start an effective introduction. Now, coming to the body, let us address the question according to the demand of the question. First part of the question, why large cities? Why large cities tend to attract more migrants? Attract more migrants. See, this being a 10 marker question, you can simply draw a flow chart to explain your answer such that you can minimize your effort and space. You can cover more aspects in small space by drawing a flow chart. Simply draw a circle and state that the factors which are facilitating greater migration to larger cities or metros. Why there is greater migration towards the metros? See here, for greater differentiation, greater better presentation of your answer, you can present the flowchart in this aspect. On one side of the question or one side of the flowchart, you can explain about the push factors. Push factors for excessive migration towards cities. On the other side, you can mention the pull factors. Pull factors. Essentially, push factors and pull factors. Push factors means which would attract, which act as a enthusiasm or which act as a magnet for the people to come to the cities. Whereas the pull factors, they push the people out. These are the important aspects of migration. In these aspects, we can understand why there is increasing migration towards the larger cities. Push and pull. Push factors are essentially concerned about the problems in the rural areas, especially lack of economic activity or livelihoods. Economic activity or livelihood. Lack of livelihood, political problems or persecution. They push the people out. Political persecution or caste bias, lack of adequate educational facilities, lack of adequate healthcare and nutrition, lack of adequate opportunities. See, opportunities can be any type. They can be political, economic, social, any aspect. They act as an important indicator of why the people are migrate to the larger cities because the larger cities have greater chance of providing economic activities, especially if you consider the metros like Mumbai, New Delhi, or international examples in Bangladesh, Dhaka, in Vietnam, or in our Brazil, or in China. The larger cities like Shanghai and Beijing, they attract phenomenally high migrants because of large scale economic activity. See here, economic activity means you can have a clear identification because in the large cities like Beijing or Metro, Beijing or New Delhi, you can have opportunities for super skilled, super skilled means a highly qualified technician, a technocrat, an, an expert in sciences. He gets a job opportunity. Similarly, a unskilled labor an unskilled labor can also get opportunity in the cities. He can work as a construction worker or he can work as a watchman. So different groups of people's demands can be filled by a larger city because it has the great potential. That's why people attract towards larger cities. See, if you compare migration towards Hyderabad and Guntur, Hyderabad can equally provide economic opportunity for a software engineer, for a doctor, for a law student, for a farmer or a menial labor. But comparatively, Guntur, which is a tier 2 city, cannot provide high quality, high paying jobs because its capacity is limited. So there was a larger movement towards the bigger cities. And next, another important factor to the large metros is their historical connection. Historical connection. Our very own example, the case of Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. See, Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai being the prime cities or the colonial centers of trade and administration, they historically accepted or welcomed large scale migrants. So the trend continues when compared with other centers. Next, apart from the economic and historical aspects, the other important aspect is educational opportunities. See, the big, large metros which are official, which may or may not be political centers like the national capitals or state capitals, they have one of the best educational institutions. They have the greater exposure for the students. So naturally, people, especially students, for pursuing higher studies, they migrate to larger cities, especially the metros. So this is one of the important reason which is attracting greater migration towards the larger cities. Next, another important aspect is healthcare, availability of healthcare opportunities. Large multi-speciality, super specialty hospitals, advanced medical developments can be easily available in the cities. So people who are in need of such facilities, they tend to move to the bigger cities for greater healthcare and other opportunities. Another also, there is a psychological aspect of being living in a a great city or a great metro. So this psychological tendency of living in a great city also attracts people to migrate from first initially from rural to urban, a small urban town to eventually to the large metros. So generally the people have a tendency to settle in large metros because of the image, because of the perception of living in a great city, great urban center. So these are the factors which attract the people towards greater migration for larger cities or metros. We can quote the examples of New Delhi in China, Shanghai, Beijing, Dhaka in Bangladesh, Dhaka in Bangladesh, and also the example of Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. In Vietnam. Even you can give the example of Indonesia, Jakarta. See, Indonesian capital Jakarta has been overcrowded and they are building a new capital because of overcrowding and excess migration. Now, all this data, this should be completed in a simple flow chart. On one side, the push factors, on the other side, the pull factors. Now comes the second part of the question. The second part of the question, the smaller towns? Why the smaller towns fail to attract migrants? why they fail to attract the migrants. Similarly, here also you can have the same approach, or you can provide simply the reasons for their decline or reasons for their problems. One of the major reasons for why there is no greater migration in the smaller towns is the limitation in economic opportunities, limits on economic opportunities. See, this is one of the great reason which we have already explained the comparison between Hyderabad and Guntur. Next, another important reason is availability of urban amenities, urban civic amenities. See, if you compare the examples of a metro city, a Mumbai or Hyderabad with the small scale cities like Guntur or any other smaller tier 2, tier 1 cities, they don't have the facilities of modern facilities, especially like metro services for faster communication or effective municipal services like effective delivery of water services, electricity supply, sewage services, and space housing. So these are all important aspects which restrict greater migration to the tier 2 cities because they have limited resources. They have a resource crunch which restrict the provision of urban amenities attracting migration. Even the RBI report states that several urban local bodies are severely in need of investment to improve their basic infrastructure. Nearly two-thirds of the urban local bodies need severe funds. They have a severe fund crunch for improving the infrastructure. This is another important reason. Next, another problem with the smaller towns is they have limited growth opportunities because the prime city attracts the large scale employment and development or the growth, restricting its ability. The future projections are limited. So the growth projections are limited, restricting large scale migration. Another aspect is the significance because the lack of any political or historical connections or lack of economic heft also restrict greater migration to the smaller towns. Lack of administrative or political or other significance. See, ideal, ideally, the large cities have developed because of a multitude of factors. A large city has administrative, economic, tourism, hospitality, strategic significance. So, all these factors have combined together to promote greater migration to the large cities. So, this kind of multitude of factors are not available for tier 2 cities, restricting migration to these towns. This is one of the very important factor which is restricting greater migration to the smaller towns. Now we have addressed the problems of the larger cities, the issues of the smaller towns. Now let us see the way forward. Way forward. How to address this mismatch? What should be done? What we need to do to reduce the greater migration to the cities? According to the estimates, it is stated that by 2050, nearly 50% of the population will be concentrated in cities. So it creates a severe problem of land shortage, land shortage, shortage in civic amenities, economic strife, growth of slums, growth of slums. So We need to have a balanced approach in order to have a balanced migration, to promote balanced and sustainable migration. Balanced and sustainable migration. See, here we need to definitely mention about the sustainable development goals of livable cities. Livable cities, sustainable development goals in making cities livable and smart. So, in the measures, we need to mention that the government schemes like Amrit Mission, and Smart Cities Mission should be further strengthened such that the Tier 2 cities, Tier 2 cities will be strengthened, they will be promoted to attract greater migration, will become economic centers or magnets of migration. Economic centers or magnets of migration. See, similarly, there has been another recommendation that promotion of greenfield cities, especially the example of Amaravati, the new capital in Indonesia, the new capital of Naya Raipur. See, they create new opportunities, economic and other opportunities for promoting balanced migration. Another important aspect is development of conurbation or megalopolis, where the urbanization is decentralized over a vast area. Urbanization is decentralized over vast areas. Example, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. See, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor enables to spread migration or urbanization from Delhi to Mumbai, stretching the entire region. The entire region becomes an urban conurbation such that the migration is dispersed and it leads to balanced urbanization, balanced development, and balanced or sustainable migration. Sustainable migration. See, these are the prominent examples for a way forward. How do we address this issue? In the final, in the conclusion, we need to mention that urbanization is an inevitable process. Urbanization is an inevitable process, but it should be sustainable such that the available resources or the see simple metric 50% of the earth's surface is empty. Earth's surface is empty or uninhabited because of the hilly terrain or the ice caps. Nearly 50% of the population is concentrated just 5% of the land in 5% of the land. So here in the conclusion, what we need to say, we need to ensure that there is sustainable and decentralized urbanization facilitating sustainable development. Sustainable development. See, this is how we can conclude an answer. This can be an effective answer for the 10 marker question. Thank you.